and hopefully we should be live.
I think we are.
Excellent. That's like my attempt at some kind of voiceover work. There we go.
Oh, not live here in the US yet.
Okay, right, fair enough. Just when you thought it was safe to go outside.
Not live here in the US. Okay.
Yeah, we are. Somewhere we're live.
I'm glad we've got some technical competence back this week anyway.
Oh, thanks, Nev.
Well.
Well, you should hire the best. That's what I say. Even if he is from Manchester.
No.
He's done it again. He's done it again.
Sorry, I'm having fun. Never mind you lot. I've had a Baileys. I'm feeling quite relaxed.
It's going to be a difficult couple of hours, isn't it? I've decided. Yes.
Whatever goes that way. Yeah. Oh. What, the fact that I've had a drink or the fact that Andy hasn't?
Both of those things are a problem. Yes.
Both of those are a serious concern. Yeah. Shall I go and get some water? That sounds like a good idea.
Yes. Stay away from the Baileys for the rest of the night.
Don't do that.
Since we're live, I just want to say these Plain Talking UK, I only listen for the grey. That's a poem.
Oh, look at that.
Mugs are delightful for things other than coffee also, or tea.
Okay, right.
Okay.
What sort of measure, just out of interest, is in?
About 2 fingers.
Lovely, and to you too, sir.
Good afternoon. Anybody hasn't seen it yet?
No, indeed. Good afternoon, sir. Yes, indeed. Yes, we've got a couple of orders in. Need a couple more before I get the batch printing done. But we've got a couple of orders for the grey. I'm just going to go and get myself a beverage of the water variety. Back in a mo. How long? Oh, 5 minutes. Good. Right, chat amongst yourselves.
We will. Yes. Yes, I had a very interesting flight to Stockholm on Sunday, and I bumped into a fella called Lee, it was his first ever flight as cabin crew on this service to Arlanda, and he was incredibly nervous, you could tell. Coincidentally, the following Wednesday, or was it the Thursday of that week, I was flying back from Copenhagen, and he was operating on the same flight. So we recognised each other, and he had done 8 sectors by then, and he was a different person. He'd got a lot more confidence, and but can you imagine, being a cabin crew or flight deck crew, for that matter, on your first ever, operating flight with fare-paying passengers? That must be quite...
I remember it well.
Quite a thing, yeah.
Well, it was a long time ago now.
Yeah.
12 years ago?
I'm sure, yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. But also, I mean, it must be very intimidating being, a brand new cabin crew and trying to deal with the likes of me and, the rest of us.
I'm glad you said it, not me.
Yeah. But he did it magnificently. I mean, it was very difficult for him, I must say, the first one. But by the time he'd done 7 or 8 sectors, he was a different person altogether. So it was really good. Really nice. So that was a nice thing to have witnessed, I must say. So I sent him a message, which was a nice one.
That's very kind.
So, yeah. And Richard Adams says, assume he understands his job is 95% about keeping 1A happy. Well,
not when you're not sitting in it.
No, I was in 1 Charlie on the way out, and then 4 Foxtrot on the way back. These are seat numbers I didn't even know existed.
Especially the one
with the CEO.
Like I say, especially the one with the 4 in it. I mean, honestly, what happened there?
Oh dear! But,
who did you upset? That's the ultimate question.
No, it was very. I tried everything to get up the front there, but I just they were not releasing them on the app.
Oh dear!
Not to worry. Yeah.
For F's sake, Richard.
Yes, that's
very good. Very good.
See what you did there. Very good.
I think it is going to be one of those nights.
It is 2 minutes or thereabouts, something like that. Oh, the graphics are working. Winning.
Yeah, I try it.
Yeah.
And they do.
It's going to be one of them shows.
Yes.
Exactly.
Got a lot of interesting stuff on the show, actually. Quite some interesting stories there.
Yeah, which, considering we were a bit worried it was going to be a bit of a quiet news week, has been a bit of a,
Yeah,
bit of a relief.
it's odd, isn't it? Some weeks there's everything happens, and then other weeks we're sort of not scrabbling around, but having to be a bit selective about what we are using.
I think scrabbling around is a good.
It's a
word.
weird feeling too to, doing this type of show that we do when it is a quiet week. You feel bad for the content of the show, but you're kind of think, oh, good that it was a quiet week.
Yeah, good that nothing fell out of the sky, that sort of thing. Yes, move along, nothing to see here.
Oh, did you guys take a look through your through story 10? It's a good one.
Didn't get that far.
Well,
oh yeah, it's huge. Is that the one with tons and tons and tons? Yes, I did.
Yeah, we don't have to go through the whole, obviously.
There's some good ones in there, though.
Yeah, they are.
There we are. All will be revealed shortly, children. Oh, here we go. We're on time. Is that all right, Nev?
10,
Totally.
9, 8, 7,
Mike's going down.
5, 4, 3.
Well, hello and welcome to the Plain Talking UK podcast. This is episode 437. I'm Nev, and it's my great pleasure to introduce the show because Carlos is not here tonight, which is probably just as well after last week's technical difficulties.
Now.
Having said that, the main technical man is back in the hot seat tonight, and we're all very grateful for that, let me tell you. And it's Matt Smith. Hello, mate.
Hello. How are you?
Yes, very good, thank you. Very good. What have you been up to this week?
Not a lot, really. Just working mostly working, hardly working, that sort of thing. Was it? I can't remember the phrase now. Isn't it? It's like hardly working or working hard. Not quite sure which one. A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. What about you? What have you been up to?
A bit of flying this week. Flew out to Stockholm on Sunday for work, and then came back on, I think it was Thursday in the end. It was Tuesday I flew back, but I actually came back from Copenhagen, so I was doing some stuff in Denmark, so I got the train across the water from Malmo to Copenhagen, which was nice.
I'm sorry, did you say you got the train across the water?
Yes, a bridge and tunnel and all the rest of it.
Right.
That's all rather good. So that was nice. But yes, a busy week at work. And I'm quite glad we're at the end of the week, I have to say. It's been a bit hectic. But joining us also on the show, and this is a rare occurrence where we have Armando and myself on the show at the same time. Welcome, Armando.
Hi, Nev. Hi, Matt. Hi, special guest who we haven't introduced yet.
Is this one of these contractually obliged, like, sort of 3-year type sort of things?
Yeah, it's December 9th right now. So we've got another 2 to squeeze in contractually before the end of the calendar year. So yeah.
Okay, very good. Glad to
Nev and I.
Well, yeah, but the end of the year is not very far away either, is it? It's just a matter of a couple of weeks to Christmas, and then it's the end of the year again.
Unbelievable.
So when we're recording this, it's the 9th of December already. How is that possible?
It's horrific, isn't it?
Well, what's even crazier is we're in episode 437. I feel like we just did the 400th.
Yeah.
The guys over at APG were talking about going down to Brooklands. I think Captain Nick gave a speech for the Royal Aeronautical Society down there just this week, and he was talking about our 400th. And it feels like it was just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Extraordinary, isn't it? Yeah, amazing. Well, also joining us from a hotel in West Sussex. That fantastic aviator, never short of a few words, to brighten our day. It's Andy.
Oh, that was a very kind intro. You could have said it's Crawley. I mean, it's not that nice.
Well, I didn't want to, didn't want to give the game away in case people tried to, break in or ask the autograph.
Yeah, you got to watch it. Got to watch out for the groupies, definitely. Yeah,
Almost like your hometown of Manchester.
Well,
Oh dear.
Oh, I'm not going to
dear.
be allowed to let that one down. I said something I shouldn't have done before the show started. That's all I'm saying.
Yes.
so what's going on with you, Andy? Why are you down in that neck of the woods at the moment?
I am in Crawley as I start an instructor's course tomorrow for work, or as the Americans call it, a line check airman course. That's what I'm doing.
Exactly. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I start that tomorrow, so hopefully I get through that. And I've done very little work since I was last on the show. I've basically had a month off at home.
Good Lord.
Which has been very nice, but I've always had lots of jobs to do. Somehow my wife finds something for me to do every day.
Yeah.
I don't think you're alone there, to be fair, Andy.
And how long does the course
It's nice.
last for, Andy?
It is 5 days from tomorrow.
Okay.
Gosh.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Well-
pretty intense. 2 days in the classroom, 3 days in the sim.
Brilliant. Well, that's going to be hard work, but you're well up to the job, I'm sure.
Apparently. And thank you for your faith, Nev.
Yeah.
It's always
No.
appreciated.
Somebody's got to, haven't they? Eh?
Yeah, definitely.
Quite.
We were at the start of the month last week, but due to many reasons, we were unable to talk about our fantastic listeners, many of which contribute to our funds via Patreon or PayPal. So we're going to do it now instead. And here is this month's list. The people who have contributed by Patreon are Sam Dawson, Logan Lynch, Alex Robinson, Dirk S, Sasha Beer, Stephen Ivey, Nick Codling, Luis Cachares, Alan White, Stephen Howland, Tanya Wyman, Nicholas Hewitt, Masha, Ruben Wells, Neil Landwarn, Graham Haley, Jonathan Warner, Eric Graves, Jordan Rose, Andrew Wilson, my goodness me, Captain Jeff, Adam Spink, Liz Piper, Jeff Ward, Jenny Parkinson, Evan Shue, Stuart Backer, Ray Williams and Stephanie Plummer. And the people that have donated via PayPal are Craig Urosoko, Richard Adams, Tony Stubbings and Mazus Kareem. And we thank them all very much indeed, because without your contributions we really haven't got a show, so it makes a huge difference to us, and we're very grateful for everything that you guys and girls are helping us with. And this is also coming to the time of the year we'll be having one of our production meetings in January, hopefully, where we talk about, between us all, what we're going to be doing during the course of next year. And we've got a lot of things planned, and these sorts of funds really help us to do them. So once again, thank you very much indeed, and we should be sharing some of that info with you over the next over the next month or so, once we've
Absolutely.
worked out exactly where we're going to be and what we're doing. So
exciting times.
really looking forward to it. So,
Exciting times ahead.
It is, yes. I was just about to... Oh, here are the chat room. Yes, that's really important. So the people in the chat room tonight are Dirk S, Tanya. Hello, Tanya. Lee Davis, Hobby Time, Masha's in there. Richard Adams, of course. Who else have we got in there? Lee Davis, I've already mentioned. Armando, yes. Kess already mentioned, and Tanya as well. So thank you very much indeed for joining, everybody. It's been great that you can spare the time to do so.
Yes. Yeah, there are other things you could be doing on a Friday, so we're grateful you choose us.
Well, yeah. There's been some football on apparently as well.
Some what now?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Okay, good, lovely. Something happening tomorrow. Some quarter-final game apparently. Some team called England, I think, against. Is it France? Something.
Apparently
like that?
it is. Yeah. I probably will watch it actually. Much to Mrs. Nev's disgust. So
Yeah, quite.
I'll probably have to watch it upstairs on the other telly.
Yeah.
Because she won't want to have that business on her television.
No, quite. Absolutely. Will you be cheering it on, Andy, or?
Yes, yeah. I'm not a big fan of domestic football, but I love the World Cup and the Euros, so yes, I will. And my wife actually quite enjoys watching it as well.
Wow, yeah. She probably watches it for different reasons to you, to be fair. Moving on.
Wow.
Fair enough. Armando, have you been watching any of the World Cup, or is it? I mean, is it even a thing in the States? I mean, I know obviously USA were in the tournament.
Okay, this might actually surprise you, but it is quite popular here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Soccer.
I think,
sorry.
Soccer ball.
yeah, soccer. Soccer's great, especially what's in international, right? No, it is actually gaining a lot more popularity, and here with the MLS, the I guess professional soccer series here in the U.S. I think a lot of large cities have gained a following. So, but you guys know where my heart is, so I'll be cheering for England.
Correct answer. Very good.
Great
Sorry, Nev. Dig us out of this sports.
No, that's
will
fine.
You, for a quick. If Carlos was here, he'd be hissing and spitting and all sorts.
Yeah, it's not his favourite subject, is it? No.
Any form of sport, he's not a fan of. To be fair,
Not by a long way. No. Well, if we're already done, let's go and have a look at the commercial news section.
Captain has turned on the seatbelt light. Please take your seats and fasten your seatbelts.
Well, this really is the end of an era, the end of a reign, where Boeing rolls out the final 747 aircraft. This is on aerotime.aero, interestingengineering.com and businesstraveller.com. The 1,574th and last Boeing 747 aircraft has left Boeing's wide-body factory in Everett ahead of its delivery to Atlas Air next year. In July 2020, shortly after the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, the manufacturer announced plans to cease production of its jumbo aircraft. At the time, Boeing had 16 747 aircraft still to deliver, all freighter versions of the plane, and said it would stop production in 2022. The last 747 rolled out of Everett, Washington, in the US, a site which was specifically built to assemble and manufacture the twin-deck aircraft. It's also the largest building in the world by volume ever built. The site delivered its first aircraft in 1970 to Pan Am. Since then, there have been 8 major variants of the type of the aircraft, and these have been developed, and many more subtypes and one-off variants also produced. In fact, Atlas Air are now the largest operator of the type, operating 54 747s and 4 747 LCFs. So that's quite a big moment, isn't it? To see finally the end of the production. This iconic and, well, game-changing aircraft in terms of how it enabled the masses to travel across continents at relatively inexpensive prices.
It still makes me feel sad, if I'm honest with you. I still feel like the journey shouldn't be over for this iconic aircraft. Do you know what I mean? And I know that, the commercial, the freighter variant obviously will be in service for many, many, many years still to come. But I guess it's the sign of the times, isn't it, with the 4-engine thing, where you can, get the same sort of distance and things out of 2 engines, and more economical fuel burn, etc., etc. But I still feel really sad about the whole thing.
People that I know that have either been a first officer or a captain on the 747 tell me that it is a very nice aircraft to fly and to handle, very much a pilot's aircraft. Would you agree with that, Armando, from what you've heard as well?
I would. Everybody that has flown it that I know, and you guys know John Jester. John and I have talked about this airplane. It'll be one of those aircraft that goes down in history. It'll be as iconic as Concorde, as the B-17, as the Piper Cub. We're all 80 years old sitting at the pub talking about those airplanes back in the 19th or 20th century. This airplane will be at the top on the commercial list of the most iconic aircraft.
Andy, what do you think?
Oh, like you said, I was going to say exactly the same thing as you, Nev. It's a pilot's aeroplane. I was lucky enough to fly a 200/SP simulator, for a while. One of the last operating ones in Europe. I was instructor on that quite a few years ago now, and that was beautiful to fly. And I've flown the 400 sim as well. Again, just a great. You could feel, even though it was just a simulator, and of course it feels different to the real aircraft. You could feel the weight of the thing when you flew it as well. Absolutely fantastic aircraft. Like you said, change travel for everybody in the entire world. I don't think low-cost carriers would exist if something like this hadn't come along.
No, I was just about to say that. Yeah.
So, without looking it up, so 1,500, almost 1,600 aircraft is a lot. What do you guys think is the most produced aircraft in the world?
Sure, the 737, 10,771, I think, something like that.
It's a good guess. Nev?
Yeah, I was going to say either the 737 or the 727, perhaps.
The 72
Matt?
didn't get above 3,000, I don't think.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like this is like jumbo. Yeah, this is what we're not talking about. Like,
No,
we're talking commercial or any aircraft. Oh, sorry. Well, 172 then.
I was going to say something like a little Cessna, something like the 150 or like the 150 or the 172.
That is correct. The 172, 44,000 of them. How about commercial airliners?
It's got to be well. I don't know. I'm with Andy. I think it's the 73, just because it's
the 73 or the 320. I'm not sure if the 320 surpassed it now.
The 320's too young though, isn't it? Because the 73's been around longer. If you see what I mean. I don't know. Go on then.
All good guesses.
Put us out of our misery.
So the most produced commercial aircraft, the DC-3, with
really tenuous.
16,000 of them. The 737 was about 11. Well, they're up to about 11,000.
Okay.
So the DC-3 and the A320 right there behind them, 10,600.
Wow. Okay.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's slightly unexpected.
That was a fun, unexpected quiz.
Well, yes. Quite.
Yeah. Nothing like random stuff like that.
No.
I remember, in fact, coming back from the Dubai Air Show, Carlos and I were on a 747-400 with the BAE boys and girls, and that was going to be what we didn't realise at the time was that was going to be our last ever flight, probably, on a 747. We had a nice visit to the flight deck at the end, and both the captain and the first officer had said that they transitioned from the 767 to the and 777 to the 74, and apart from obviously relying quite heavily on the radio altimeter in the final phases of landing, because obviously you've got a completely different perspective, I would imagine, of the runway because you're up a lot higher. The handling and even the ground handling to a certain extent, there were similarities, which is incredible if you think about the size of the aircraft and the potential weight of it as well. I find that incredible.
Yeah, true. Right, we'll move on then to the next story, and this is from the 1 Mile at a Time website, and the headline is Woman accidentally boards flight to United States. Last week, a 29-year-old Mexican citizen named Mari
Jose Gamboa.
Mari Jose Gamboa I'll try and remember that, was supposed to return home from a vacation on Valaris. She was supposed to take the 727-mile 2-hour domestic flight from a place that I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce. I want to say Guadalajara. No, go on.
I'll jump in with the life preserver.
Please.
It's Guadalajara.
Thank you.
To Tuxtla Gutierrez.
Right, okay. You can tell John's done these stories this week, can't you? I'm being punished, obviously.
But I would have said that myself, but Armando jumped in.
Of course, absolutely. Yeah.
Ironically enough, I've edited the military stories for Nev and taken out all proper names.
Oh, I'm so jealous. Anyway, so these two but accidentally they ended up on the 2,140 mile, that's a 5-hour international flight, to Seattle. According according to Gamboa, at that airport, a Volaris airline worker had directed her to change the line she was in while waiting for her flight. She boarded the flight from that line, and somehow the gate agent didn't catch that she was about to board the wrong flight. Once on board the flight, there was someone in her assigned seat. She showed the flight attendant her boarding pass, and she also didn't catch that she was on the wrong flight and instead seated her somewhere else. About 3 hours into the flight, she was handed an immigration form for the United States. Since the woman didn't speak English, she was confused and asked the flight attendant for help, and this is when it was discovered that she was on the wrong flight. The flight attendant was shocked to learn that the traveller wasn't intending to fly to the United States and didn't have a passport. The crew then asked her for a phone number to contact her family so that they could let the family know what was going on. Upon arriving in the United States, a Volaris employee accompanied Gamboa in the immigration hall. She was interviewed by immigration officers, and then they escorted her back to her flight as she immediately returned to... He's not listening, sorry. And returned back to her home country on the same Volaris plane. Repatriation paid for by Volaris. Officers told her there'd be no negative record of this in the event that she wanted to travel to the United States in future. Throughout this ordeal, Gamboa's family were obviously incredibly concerned as she hadn't arrived in Tuxtla as planned. Thank you. Yeah. Her family had been informed at the time that she had gone missing and that there was nothing Volaris representatives could do. Then the National Guard stepped in and told Volaris that they would have to file a missing persons report. Gamboa claims that upon eventually arriving in... Thank you very much. Volaris employees blamed her for getting on the wrong flight. Now, I mean, there's loads of things that we can go. Thank you, first of all, to Armando for his excellent pronunciations. The thing
Sure,
that
the landscapers are just outside the window, like leaf blowing right
Lovely,
now, which is
very good, very busy. It's a busy old household. I mean, the thing that's sort of frustrating, I think, for me in this thing is she was moved into a different line. That's fine, mistakes are made. I think the bit that disturbs me the most, though, is the fact that they checked the ticket because somebody was sitting in her allocated seat and the person didn't actually think, oh, hello, this is the wrong flight. That's the bit that sort of surprises me, I suppose. So, if you're looking that closely at the ticket for a seat number, I don't know. I guess it could be easily missed.
Can jump in here. I know I've had days when I only spent 1 year at an airline, and I would have 6 leg days where I had no idea where I was. You get on the ground and you're kind of doing paperwork and you're trying to think what city am I in right now? So I actually give especially boarding is emotional for everyone. There's a lot going on, and the cabin crew is super busy. Sure, this is their job, but I think this is I can understand them looking briefly at a piece of paper boarding pass, and just kind of in their head looking at the number because that's the thing that's being asked, and not looking at the rest of the piece of paper.
Yeah.
So, at least the cabin crew. Now the gate agents, that's their job. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they're running behind, they're going to be wanting to just get on with it. A quick look at the number. Oh, yeah, they must have put it through the system wrong. That can happen. It's the right time of year for this story. It's very Home Alone 2, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, I'll give you that.
On the wrong flight.
And from a customs standpoint, I think if they don't get off the aircraft, the Volaris is a Mexican registered airline. So I think as long as they don't get off the aircraft and they just keep her on there, there's no harm, no foul with customs and immigrations or anything.
Although they did say that she was in the immigration hall and stuff, and that a Volaris employee or representative met her in the hall. I guess because she probably got off with everybody else, didn't she? Not really sure quite what to do. I mean, it's just.
Yeah, and she doesn't speak English as well, so it must have been quite frightening, the whole ordeal for her.
Yeah, absolutely. In a country where absolutely. Although, I dare say, because I guess they would once she was sort of in the airport, I'm sure there would have been people there that could have helped her, if you see what I mean, in terms of the language issue. But a very sort of frightening story, really. I think certainly for her and her family, to sort of end up quite several thousand miles away from where she was expecting to be. That's frightening stuff.
Yeah, I did had a similar situation, although hardly comparable, because there was two aircraft next to each other at T5 at Heathrow 3 or 4 years ago when I was flying. One was the Glasgow flight, one was the Edinburgh flight, and I think as many as 3 or 4 people ended up on the wrong flight. Obviously, there's something that was going wrong with the gates and checking the boarding passes and this kind of stuff. But that did delay things. I mean, and thank goodness they spotted it before they actually, departed, because they found that people were on the wrong plane.
Yeah.
Obviously. So
I remember back in 2013. Christmas Eve, the day before Christmas Eve, we had lots of storms. I got called out to standby on Christmas Eve to go to Gatwick to operate some delayed flights because aircraft all over the place. And you could see this coming. They parked 2 flights, exactly the same aircraft, look the same. One's going to Munich, one's going to Munich, both departing at the same time.
Oh.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And you can see what's coming. Some people on there on the wrong flight, their bags were on there, some bags were on there, the people were on here. It was an absolute mess. It's very easy to happen.
Oh, were they both going to the same airport?
Yes.
Okay, so I suppose that's slightly less complicated to try and tie. I suppose it's just like once you'd worked it out, I suppose you might just go and stand at the other belt if your case didn't come out of the other belt.
No, but you can't fly the aircraft without the purse and the correct bag on.
That's it. It's a security rule.
Okay, right.
Yeah. So you have to make sure that you've got to swap all the people around or swap the bags around.
I mean, I challenge that slightly only because Nev managed to go all the way on holiday without his bags.
Because they didn't get on the aircraft.
Well, I suppose there is that. Yeah, okay, fair enough. I'll give you that. Yeah.
I tell you what, they could make things a bit easier for the less experienced traveller. This code share business.
Yeah.
They've got to stop it. I honestly, it is so confusing if you're looking at the departure board, which says, it's the BA 1438 to Edinburgh, and it's AA this, and it's, Qatar something else, and it's just this scrolling thing that goes around the whole time. I fail to see the advantage of that for any passengers at all. The whole code share thing has gone mad, in my opinion, and must lead to delay and confusion at the gate sometimes for those people that perhaps just don't travel very often.
So, I mean, forgive my naivety here, because obviously I've been lucky that I haven't had to sort of experience that, really. I mean, would it not make sense for each flight to sort of still exist on the departure board as an individual item?
Well, it does, but of course it scrolls through all of the other code share flights. So quite often there are 4 or 5 other carriers that share the code, that share the flight with their own flight numbers. And so it does actually go back to the BA 14, whatever it is.
Right.
But if you just look at it for a while and, the scrolling isn't that fast, perhaps. Maybe I'm making too much of this, but I just think it's another one of those things that can lead to delay at the gate or getting to your flight, if you're not familiar with it.
Yeah. I mean, I would be one of those people very easily confused by that, because I don't do a great deal of flying. I mean, I suppose at least you have flying experience under your belt, so you almost know what you're looking out for, as where someone like me who does a flight once in a blue moon, would be very confused about the fact, because I wouldn't necessarily know that, for example, my American Airlines flight was actually a code share with BA, and it was a BA aircraft that I was getting on. I wouldn't necessarily know that information. Would it? I mean, would it say it on my boarding pass, for example, or would it just literally have a normal, it would just have the.
If you were flying a domestic flight, yes, but quite often it will say also operated as code share with Singapore or American or whatever else it is.
This is what happens if you're from Ipswich, Matt. It's very confusing.
Oh, see what you did there. Moving on. Ooh.
Well,
yeah. To be fair, I deserved that. That's fine.
Yes.
Speaking of scary cities, we're going to go to Dominican Republic. Nothing. No, that wasn't an Ipswich dig. I've been to Ipswich.
My commiserations.
This next story is from simpleflying.com and CBC up in Canada. The Pivot Airlines is a Canadian airline. These pilots and flight crew were actually jailed in the Dominican Republic 8 months ago. They've returned to the United States. The crew was in Punta Cana on April 5th, about to take off, when one of the crew members found a bag in the avionics bay. The RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, right? The National Police and local police were notified, eventually found 8 bags containing cocaine totaling 210 kilograms. Sorry, that's a lot of cocaine. The crew were arrested and remained in some cells for 9 days. According to the crew, they were threatened daily by other imprisoned drug traffickers who threatened the crew with violence if they did not transfer any money. After 9 days, the crew was freed on bail, but their passports were confiscated and ordered to remain in the Dominican Republic. The crew was freed. However, the airline says that they had to live under armed guard most of the time because of death threats. Less than a month ago, on November 11th, prosecutors for the public ministry in the Dominican Republic announced that the case against the Canadians was being closed due to not enough evidence being found to substantiate the accusations. So this Pivot crew was jailed 8 months ago, returned to Canada this week. Loved ones greeted them with hugs and tears at Toronto's Pearson International Airport after flying home on WestJets. This story is interesting because, Andy, I'd be interested to hear, do you guys get tested every once in a while? Not drug tested, but do the security services at some of these airports run exercises with you guys? Because the US TSA does, to make sure that we are complying with our required security checks.
Depends where we're going, because of course you've just got TSA, huge country, whereas we jump into all sorts of different countries, all sorts of different rules. Some do, some don't. We get RAB checked a lot, but that's mainly just documentation, checking that everything's on the manifest as it should be. But no, not very often do they start rooting around in avionics bays. They do check the holds when they do a RAB check, but they don't really go into much more detail than that.
Yeah, the US TSA does actually, they have these, toy sort of weapons and daggers and improvised explosive devices that are, obviously fake. They're, painted bright orange or something like that.
Yeah.
But they will actually at some of our SITA airports, our secure airports, they'll actually test to see if the crews and the ground crews are doing their required security checks. But this was always a fear of mine. I used to work quite a bit in South America. I think my first 10 years in the Air Force, I was, funny enough, I worked in counter drug. So I was chasing these guys around, the bad guys. And it was always a fear for us that something would get stashed by a ground crew, even somebody on your own crew, because we had, pretty big, the air crews themselves were small, but we had a large footprint with maintenance, and all the support personnel. So every time we sent an aircraft down, or 2 aircraft, we probably had 30 or 40 people. Now everybody's bags are potentially, able to be compromised by, and it was a thing. It was a thing. Some of our fellow Army crews got busted with drugs in their some of their aircraft compartments. But this was. And unfortunately, even in uniform in the military, we would go through U.S. Customs just like everybody else, and our aircraft would be searched, and our bags would get searched, and the dogs would come out. But I feel bad for these guys. If it was genuine, 210 kilograms of cocaine, that also makes a pretty big difference in your weight and balance, doesn't it?
I was about to say, I hope it was on the load sheet.
Quite.
Wow.
I do like Dirk S's comment as well. That's more cocaine than the A320 in Colombia had fuel on board upon touchdown.
Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? Goodness me. And on that, yes, before we get into more hot water, Andy, I wonder if you could take the next story, please.
Yes, certainly. So this is Alaska Airlines debuts digital bag tags, but they don't come cheap. And this is from the pointsguy.com. Alaska Airlines has officially become the first US airline to offer digital bag tags for checked luggage. The Seattle-based carrier announced on Wednesday that it was successfully debuted an electronic bag tags device in partnership with the Dutch company BagTag. That's an original name, isn't it? At launch, these electronic bag tags are being sent to 2,500 Alaska Mileage Plan Elite members for the first round of testing. Eligible elites who will receive a bag tag are those who have travelled in the last 12 months, checked at least one bag, and were among the first to register to use the device. The airline expects to roll out these devices more broadly next year. When it does, the devices themselves won't be cheap. They'll roughly run for around $70 each. That said, the airline estimates a roughly 40% reduction in the time spent in check-in lobby when using the new technology. After attaching the device to your bag, you can activate it starting 24 hours before your flight during the process on Alaska's mobile app. At launch, only single passenger domestic itineraries that include just a single checked bag are supported. You also need to qualify for complimentary checked bags in order to use the electronic bag tags. This includes those with Alaska's co-branded credit cards, mileage plan, and One World elites, Club 49 members, and first-class travellers. Though Alaska plans to remove these restrictions as the technology is more broadly rolled out. After completing mobile check-in, the bag tag device will sync with your phone through an antenna that powers and reads the information transmitted from the Alaska mobile app. The device's e-paper screen will then display your digital bag tag. When you arrive at the airport, you'll approach the baggage drop-off counter and bypass any kiosks or desks. You'll need to present your government-issued ID and your bag will then be on its way. As for the bag tag itself, it doesn't require charging or batteries, and it can withstand being run over by a luggage cart.
Wow.
Alaska's team successfully tested its durability by running it over with a truck. I hope it was more than once. The device is attached to your bag using an industrial-strength plastic zip tie, but the airline recommends placing an identification tag inside your suitcase in case the device were to fall off. While Alaska is the first US-based airline to debut electronic bag tags, this technology is already alive or has been piloted with various international carriers such as the Lufthansa Group, Air France, KLM, and China Southern. The luxury luggage brand Rimowa even joined the electronic bag tag program with pre-installed devices on its popular metal hard shells. Well,
they're quite expensive, though, aren't they? $70 each.
Yeah, and I just don't believe this. I mean, it's an electronic device. You cannot say it's indestructible. That's impossible.
Yeah,
and
agreed.
That little screen, because I saw the picture that you put up. I mean, if that gets smashed, then that's it. Your bag's just missing.
Yeah. It's. I mean, it's not. I'm just sort of trying to find a sort of a good example of it. Really, it looks like it's like a little. It's like the screen you used to get on a calculator, isn't it, Nev? It's got that same sort of dot matrixy style sort of screen. I mean, as you say,
like sort of a Kindle screen. Is that a type of thing?
Yeah, maybe. Just not as many pixels, I think, as is safe to say.
I think only one of us qualifies as an eligible elite. So Nev,
would you? When you having yours? Yes.
Well, I don't. I've stopped checking luggage in.
Right. Yes, I don't blame you
because I'm not going through that again. Although I may have to because I'm off to Dallas and Portland in February, so we'll have to do some checking there. But for any other thing that I do, I'm just not checking bags at all because of delay in general.
Yeah. So I mean,
I don't understand how it doesn't. Sorry, Matt. I don't understand how it doesn't require charging or batteries. How's it going to last forever?
Well, I mean, unless it's one of those 10-year lithium batteries, perhaps the same that they use in computers that keep the clock running and things like that. Perhaps.
Well, and that type of display, a bit like the Kindle display, as you guys were saying, once the power has been used to bring that image up, it doesn't actually require power to keep it there. So it's one of those. So it's a little burst of power, but then for the rest of that day, the rest of that flight, etc., you don't need power because you haven't got to change the image. That image will now remain for the duration of the time that it has that tag on it, if you see what I mean. Some of the other
no idea.
Yeah. Genuinely, that's one of the reasons why Kindles, their battery lasts so long. It's why you just give it a little charge and it'll last for 3 weeks, because it is literally it's an Etch-a-Sketch basically, but electronic. That's the best way I can describe it. So it's that same sort of thing where you don't need power. Anyway, by the by, so one tag per bag are the some of the restrictions on there. The tags can be shared between people, obviously not on the same flight. It requires a phone with Bluetooth and an NFC capability. I think virtually every phone has that now. A quick point about the Rimowa. They've actually discontinued the product that had been in the hardshell case an integrated bag tag. However, they do still work with Bag Tag, a company providing the software for them, and the units sold are still functional. And John was particularly interested when he was doing these details about why it didn't work with Rimowa, and he's saying just because there wasn't enough integration, which I think is probably the case. It'll be something simple like a protocol that they're using to get that information across is not perhaps embedded in that system. They might have changed their mind at the last minute and changed, perhaps for security reasons or anything like that. And of course, one of the other things, as you would expect John to sort of pick up on, is the fact this does feel like it's a way of trying to minimise people being involved in the airport and getting you on that plane. This does look like a way of.
We're already at that point now, though, aren't we? With bag. You tag your own bag, then drop it. You don't talk to anybody.
True, yeah.
I suppose it takes out that step. And if it does work and is proved to work and is developed, then it cuts down on all those bag tags and all the rubbish and everything, doesn't it? So I suppose it could be a good thing for the future. I don't know.
Yeah, $70 though, I think is still way too much for something like that, isn't it? I think I wouldn't pay it personally. I'd rather just put a bit of paper on it. It's the thing. But is that if that's if the airline wants to go down that route, then perhaps it should be their responsibility.
Well, it's $70 for the first sort of round here. But again, as technology improves, it might drop to $10, $15 in the future.
Yeah, true. I'm sure it will drop, as you say.
Well, just from one bit of reasonably good news to some very bad news. On the BBC.com website, it says air passengers are told to expect serious disruption. People face serious disruption at UK airports over Christmas due to planned strikes by border staff, the Home Secretary has warned. Suella Braverman said that people should think carefully about their plans as they may well be impacted. Staff at 6 airports will stage walkouts from the 23rd of December to Boxing Day and from the 28th of December to New Year's Eve. The strikes come at one of the busiest times for travel and coincide with walkouts by train and rail workers. It's the first Christmas since 2019 that airlines have been able to operate without widespread COVID restrictions. Up to 2 million passengers are expected to arrive between the 23rd and the 31st of December at the airports where the strikes will take place, according to the aviation analytics firm Cirium. It said that more than 10,000 flights are scheduled to arrive at Heathrow, London Gatwick, Manchester, Birmingham, Cardiff and Glasgow Airport during that period. Around 1,000 public and commercial services union members, that's the PCS union, including people who work in passport control, are taking industrial action after the Home Office offered workers a 2% pay rise instead of the 10% that they requested. A report in the Times said that airlines have been advised to cancel up to 30% of their flights over the 8 days of strikes to prevent disruption at airports. The government said it will draft in military personnel to help minimise disruption if the walkouts go ahead. But travel expert Simon Calder said that doesn't make up for the decades of expertise and experience that the Border Force staff have, so you're going to see queues building up. Comrade Andy.
Yes.
I
like that. Comrade Andy. See, you know what my first comment's going to be then.
Uh-oh.
I have no issue with the right to strike at all. And I think the state this country's in at the moment, everybody has every right to do it. Right, that's the political side done. I am working over that period, 23rd, 24th, and 25th. I've already, what's the word I'm looking for? I've already resigned myself to the fact that it's going to be an absolute nightmare, because the problem for the airlines is going to come at the point where the immigration hall is full, and then they won't let anybody else off aircraft.
True.
So we're going to be pulling on stand, and we're going to have to sit there for hours with the passengers on board. And then, of course, there's the knock-on delay to the next flight. Then you've got to start thinking about flight time limitations and hours for the crew. It is going to be a very tricky time for everybody travelling.
Yeah, and we've already had this, haven't we? You know, with airport capacity limitations and stuff like that. And even today, well, this week, at Heathrow on whatever day it was, Tuesday. Once again, we're sat on very near the apron, but because the stand guidance hadn't been turned on, we're stuck there for 20 minutes still on the aircraft. So any time that we'd made up on the way there was evaporated by the time we actually pulled onto the stand. But this is a real problem now, because the airports and the airlines need that revenue back into the system after 2.5, 3 years really of really poor load factors and revenue because of what's happened. And I just hope there's a solution here somewhere. You know.
Yeah, it's quite a
Oh, Andy, you've become a Dalek briefly. It'll probably settle down in a minute. We'll just give it a minute. But I must admit, and again, I don't want to get too political all about this, and I completely understand, as Andy said, completely understand everybody's right to strike. That's fine. Things are perhaps not as good in this country at the moment as I would like to think, because I love this country very much. And I'm very concerned about some of the things that are going on in it. My sadness, I think, for this is, and I understand why they're choosing this time of year to do it, because obviously it will absolutely make a point. But these people have, and it's a bit like when it was all going a bit wrong in the summer. Do you know what I mean? These people have been, going on holiday is not a cheap thing to do. So people will have saved lots of money to do these things. And all of their holidays are now essentially going to be potentially ruined by this strike action, as I say. And I completely get the reasons why they're doing it. They're right to be doing it. But I do feel that there's a better time or a better way that they could be doing this. And that's my frustration, I think, really, with this. I'm really worried that, very, very good people who are going on holiday, perhaps their only holiday of the year, or even worse, they're going to go and see family or friends or relatives that they haven't seen for a very, very long time, and they've waited to Christmas to go and do it as part of, sort of maybe seeing them for the last time or anything like that. I'm desperately concerned for the people who are going on holiday, and the people like the cabin crew and the pilots and everything who, through no fault of their own, will also have their Christmases and New Year times disrupted for just doing their job.
Well, kind of along those lines, can I offer a personal, opinion on this one? Is, give it up for your military people. So if you work in the motor pool, if you work in the finance shop, if you work at an engine shop, and next thing you know, there's a strike happening, and you are checking passports at Heathrow.
True. Yeah.
And there goes your holiday.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
It's a testament to the people that serve, both, the military members themselves, the spouses, and the government civilians that support all the militaries in our friendly and partner coalition countries, that something like this happens, a natural disaster happens, and people don't think twice about jumping in to help, and you just get a phone call one day that says, hey, you're not going to work there at Bryce Norton, you're getting on a bus, and you guys are going to sleep on cots in a gym somewhere near the airport for the next 2 weeks, and you'll be checking passports and doing security.
Wow. Andy, how's your mic sounding at the moment? Is that any better?
I don't know.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Sounding
It's-
fabulous,
better.
yes.
Did you want to come back on that? Sorry.
Yeah, so the point was exactly what you're saying. This is the most important time of year for an airline. Airlines make a lot of money in that 2 weeks, and if it's all going wrong again, then the passengers are just going to blame the airlines once again, because they got blamed for the disaster of the summer because not enough ground handlers and stuff like that. So it's harming everybody. But if you're going to do a strike, you've got to do it where it hurts the most, haven't you? If you want to get your point across. So
I know,
Yeah.
but I do feel that they, again, yes, you're absolutely right, but I just think not now when everybody else is, everybody's already on their knees. It's we're all terrified about how much it's going to cost. I mean, it's turned cold here. Admittedly, it's only -2 here tonight. But. Our electricity is, I mean, we've used 72 quid's worth of gas and electricity in a really short period of time. We're all absolutely terrified about where this is going. So this might, for many people, be like their last ditch attempt to have a holiday, and it's all now going to be ruined because of people striking. And you're right, it will absolutely have the impact that they want, and I guess that's what they're hoping is it will force the government to sort of, come around the table and strike a deal so that it doesn't go ahead. But I don't think they're going to, and it's as you say, it's like Armando's added another layer to it. So it's not only the likes of you, Andy, and the passengers and the cabin crew and all that kind of thing, but it's going to be the military families and everything else that are also going to be massively inconvenienced while they try and do what they can to keep things running. So you're completely right. It's of course the time that they're going to do it because it'll have the maximum impact. I'm just worried for everyone else.
Well, let's move on before I start talking about the government.
Okay, right.
Now this next story, Matt. Sometimes we get stories which have similarities or even repetition. I have never heard of a situation like the one that you are about to describe.
This is a different situation, I think, isn't it? Yeah. So we'll go into detail as best we can anyway. So this is coming from aviation24.be, Sky News as well on this one, and the headline is "Fake Childbirth Call forces Pegasus Airlines flight to divert to Barcelona in Spain." A strange incident occurred on flight Papa Charlie 652 of Pegasus Airlines in the very early morning of 7th of December. The flight uneventfully departed from Casablanca Airport in Morocco with destination Istanbul, Turkey. Around 1 hour 45 minutes into the flight, a passenger claimed she started labour, forcing the crew to divert to Barcelona in Spain. Authorities say that once the plane touched down, a group of 28 people exited and tried to flee. The police managed to stop half of the group, but 14 escaped officers at the airport and remain at large. The woman, who doctors later found was pregnant but not about to give birth, was arrested on suspicion of public disorder offences. Spanish authorities said 5 of the people who were caught agreed to be put back on the flight from the Moroccan city of Casablanca to Istanbul. The rest are being processed for non-admission to Spain. According to authorities, it is expected they, along with the woman who allegedly faked giving birth, will be put on another Pegasus flight out of the country. I mean, this is just such a bizarre...
I don't even know where to begin with that.
It's just such a bizarre situation, isn't it? I suppose this is... I mean, I guess no air bridge on this particular case, so it's probably just a set of steps at the... on the aircraft type sort of thing, and it's like, so they opened the doors and basically did a runner. I mean, how did they get on there in the first place? That's the other question.
There's a lot of questions.
There is a lot of questions.
And we've only had sort of 30% of the answers there, I think. Amazing.
Yes, Mark on the WhatsApp number is just saying, "Wow, it sounds like the storyline to a film." This,
it does, doesn't it? Yeah,
it does.
Speaking of films, next story says that British Airways brings Paramount Plus on board. This is on the paxx.aero website. BA is going to offer content from streaming video provider Paramount Plus on board its long-haul fleet. The partnership offers passengers access to an increased range of entertainment content, but stops a step short of bringing true streaming to all passengers on board. Customers will be able to watch a curation of exclusive exclusive Paramount Plus series targeting all ages on the Airline's High Life entertainment platform, including Halo, The Offer, Queen of the Universe, Camp Coral, SpongeBob's Underyears, iCarly, Yellowstone, and the Star Trek series. The content will be available on the carrier's embedded IFE screens across all cabins on the long-haul fleet. Passengers will also be presented with an option to subscribe to Paramount Plus as part of the offering, allowing them to continue watching before and after their flight. British Airways will also offer a complimentary month of service to bronze, silver and gold tier members of the company's Executive Club loyalty programme. Key to this offering, however, is that it is not open access to the streaming library whilst in flight. Indeed, passengers won't be streaming the content at all, despite all the planes carrying high-speed in-flight internet systems on board. Instead, the airline and Paramount will stage a selection of episodes from many series into the High Life entertainment system. Passengers can choose from those episodes on board. On the plus side, British Airways and Paramount hosted a cool activation at Heathrow where 5 Star Trek characters passed through the terminal in search of their flight. Unsuspecting customers and colleagues were taken by surprise as the Starfleet cadre made its way through the airport to board USS Enterprise Flight 1701 to Starbase 1. Oh, dear.
I love that. I love that.
Well, it's sort of a streaming service, but not a streaming service, isn't it, really?
Essentially what it is
the story BA... So is the story BA have added some more things to their in-flight entertainment system and you can have a subscription to Paramount Plus if you pay for it?
Pretty much. I mean, this is essentially content that's been provided by Paramount Plus into their system, I suppose. It's essentially a glorified sponsorship deal, isn't it? That's what it is. That is essentially what it is. Having said that, I have recently subscribed to Paramount Plus. I've got a 1-month free subscription, and I'm currently very much enjoying Star Trek: The Next Generation. But we'll gloss over that and move on. So, I mean, Nev, presumably you'd be entitled to a 1-month subscription or something as part of your status.
I'll give it a go.
Yeah.
I'll see how good it is. I've got a couple of long-haul flights coming up in February. So, yes.
Indeed. But I think that's what it is. As I say, it's like it's not a streaming deal at all, is it? Let's be honest. I mean, it's content from Paramount that has been supplied to BA, and will be available on their platform.
Yes.
I gotta admit, I'm a sucker for this. American Airlines did this with Apple Plus, and the first time that I watched Ted Lasso was on an airliner, and I think when I got on I watched both episodes that they offered, and about an hour later I subscribed to Apple Plus. So
that is quality entertainment, though. Other services are available, but that is Ted Lasso is quality.
It is. I could. Well, we're already watching it a second time again.
I mean, I was a bit excited about the fact that SpongeBob SquarePants was available on there. I didn't know that was there. I'm gonna have to look that up as soon as we finish this, I think.
I must be getting old because I only recognise SpongeBob and Star Trek out of that list. I don't know what the rest
me too.
were.
Yeah.
Yeah, did you like the way I read it as if I knew all of the
absolutely all
the content?
Yes.
Consummate professional.
Yeah, Mark reckons you've got shares in it, Nev. That's why.
Well, you see, we're all getting a bit older now, aren't we? So we can't be expected to know everything. But of course, some of the more mature people are also being recruited into the airlines as well. And
he's great. He's great with the segues, isn't he?
Armando's going to tell us all about
segue.
that. I know. Yes.
Man, like a TV presenter.
We need to spray it in gold and just sort of turn it into an award, don't we?
Yeah.
Show us how it's done. Teach me, Sensei. EasyJet. Oh, EasyJet. They're going on a hiring spree, and rather than targeting the youth, like Nev said, it is actually targeting senior citizens in its pursuit to recruit more flight attendants. Over the last year, EasyJet has seen a 30% increase in new flight attendants over the age of 60. So there's still hope for all of us. Over the last 4 years, EasyJet saw a 27% increase in new flight attendants over the age of 45. Hey, that's pretty young. Now, EasyJet specifically targeting those older groups in a new recruiting drive aimed at empty nesters. That's a very nice way to put it. The airline explains that its new initiative is coming on the heels of a new survey in the UK suggesting that 78% of Britons are resolved to take on new challenges once their children leave home, and nearly 60% are open to new careers. So this new campaign that they're broadcasting out, and Matt is posting some pictures, spotlights a number of older EasyJet cabin crew members who have joined the airline in the last year, including Neil Brown, who is a young 59 years old, Peter Wanless, who is 68, Mike Tier, 57, Gary Fellows, 63, and Carlos Santamonica, who's 48 years old. Come on, that's not even old enough to qualify for AARP here in the U.S. EasyJet is thinking that older workers bring a wealth of life experience and transferable skills, including superior customer service skills and knowledge over how to deal with people. I will agree with that, making them ideal candidates to work a customer-facing role for the airline. So, for example, Neil Brown, he was an engineer for 3 decades. Now he has followed in the footsteps of his daughter and become a flight attendant in 2019. Referring to Karen, 54 years old, and Daniela, 21 years old, a mother-daughter flight attendant team, Mike Brown, who is the director of cabin services for EasyJet, explained that at EasyJet, our people are at the heart of everything we do, and that it's the warm welcome and fantastic customer service that our cabin crew are famous for. Karen and Daniela are a great example of how being cabin crew is a fantastic job, no matter what your age. So we want to encourage even more people like them to join us. If you've got a passion for travel and people and want a job that's different every day, that's the truth, then we can't wait to welcome you on board as part of the team. So go ahead.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, the bit that I'm worried about now is that at 48, you're now classed as a senior citizen, are you? That's...
Right, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, having just recently celebrated a birthday last week, turning 46, and then I was saying I'm 2 years away from being officially old.
Get your bus pass though, mate.
Well, that's true. Does that mean I get the winter payment allowance as well? Because that'll help.
Yeah, don't you get a discount on the National Rail too?
Yeah, sure, why not?
I did actually get my senior rail card. Just the other day.
Did you?
Yeah.
Only just now. Oh,
I know. I'm a year late, actually, as it happens. But yeah.
Wow. Indeed. Okay, brutal. Interestingly, actually, something that John's put in the notes here on a serious note. If anyone wants to apply and wants to know more about life as crew, contact the show and we'll put you in touch with some of the amazing crew members that we've had on the show in the past. So, yeah, if you are genuinely interested, get in touch with us and we can put you in touch with some amazing people who do exactly that for their job every single day. Yeah, absolutely.
I will agree with one point, which is I think young individuals today could learn a thing or two about customer service from people that grew up without devices and not in the digital age.
Yep.
I think it is a good way to mentor young cabin crew, and to be honest, even pilots. Like I learned a lot from those that are in the sunset years of their career. I enjoy flying with them, actually.
Absolutely. They had the best stories, I find.
Yes. Well, we're always talking about a lack of homes and building possibilities here in Great Britain generally and Northern Ireland and what have you. But this is an interesting take on what could be possible at one of the airports, Andy.
Yeah, so this is hangar homes are planned for Enniskillen Airport, and this is from flyingisland.com, fly.co.uk, and their own website, Hangar Homes. 10 hangar homes could be built at Enniskillen Airport, Northern Ireland. If developer Peter Day's plans are approved by the local council, Peter and his planning consultant recently met with 2 leading local councillors and the head of development at the town hall to discuss the scheme, which was described as very positive. Speaking after the meeting, he said, "On Thursday, I signed an option agreement with the landowner to purchase the site for Enniskillen Aeropark." That word's very easy, but when I start reading it, it just doesn't come out right. Subject to getting planning permission, which I am confident will be granted and lead it to be the first aeropark in the UK. He went on to say that because Enniskillen Airport is in one of the most beautiful parts of Northern Ireland, whose local economy is based on tourism, these hangar homes must be used as holiday homes for pilots and their families, who could also rent them out short-term to other pilots and their guests. In addition to roadside and airside access, each hangar home will also have access to Loch Earn via a private slipway to the river north of the site for boating, fishing, and even golf. Oh, thankfully, on the other side of the lake. Enniskillen Airfield is set in one of the most picturesque areas of Northern Ireland and is located just 3 nautical miles north of the town, on the shores of the loch. The airfield was first built in 1941 and used during World War II as RAF's law. Since 1996, it has been a private ownership as a civilian airfield, with scheduled flights operating from there until 2006. It is one of only 5 licensed airfields in Northern Ireland and is an ideal base to tour the whole of Ireland as holiday homes for pilots. With the support of both the airfield owner and the landowner of the field adjacent to the disused part of the Eastern Taxiway, a planning application is being submitted for 10 hangar homes plus 1 to be used as a clubhouse for residents and visiting pilots, with a 10-metre by 5-metre swimming pool, I hope it's heated, jacuzzi, sauna and steam room in the hangar, a gym in the garage, changing rooms and showers in the entrance hall, and an aviation-themed restaurant and bar upstairs overlooking the airfield and the lakes. Should planning permission be granted, then the hangar homes could be available in 2023, after which the clubhouse will be built. And each hangar home would include a detached home with 190 square meters of living space. That's quite a bit. 20 meters by 9 meters by 3 meter hangar underneath your home, underfloor heating for all rooms upstairs, a fitted kitchen with built-in appliances, a balcony for outdoor living overlooking the airfield, and a balcony for the master and second bedroom, and a driveway with front and side gardens. Well, that sounds very fancy.
It certainly does. Yeah, I'm loading it now, Armando. I believe you've got something to say on this.
Yeah, and here I was actually really surprised to hear that this is the first air park hangar community in the UK. I don't know the exact number. I looked for this. It's anywhere between 400 and 600 private air parks. Now, that air parks here in the US are pretty common, fairly popular. Just in the Charlotte area, there's at least 5 or 6, and it is literally a subdivision. Matt has a picture there of Spruce Creek. That's one of the most famous ones. It's down in Florida. There are hundreds of homes. Every home has a hangar attached or maybe detached, but the streets often double as taxiways. So the street signs are usually only about 2 or 3 feet off the ground. So a low wing Piper can get over it. The mailboxes are low to the ground. It's actually a pretty popular and common way for pilots to live here. Most of the Reno pilots that we've interviewed on the show live at some sort of air park. Personally, even in the middle of nowhere in Clovis, New Mexico, where I used to live for about 5 years, there are air parks in New Mexico, and me and some friends rented an Airbnb house at an air park, and we took a couple airplanes, 3 airplanes, and flew them to this part of just south of Albuquerque, and it was great. I mean, we didn't have a car, but we flew 3 airplanes in and parked them, 2 in the hangar, 1 out front, just like it's such a common thing here. Even last year, before we bought this house, we were looking at a property just on Lake Norman that just required a little bit too much developing for our, we didn't want to take on that big of a project. It was pretty steep grade, but it was at Long Island Air Park, which is here in Lake Norman. And our plan was to build a small home with a hangar about the same size, about 2,000 square feet, 2,500 square feet, but have a 40-foot by 40-foot hangar so we could keep 1 or 2 airplanes in there. Yeah, pretty common here in the U.S.
I think the big difference comes in cost for GA flying over there versus the UK.
Yeah.
It
For
is
sure.
really expensive now. That's why I don't do it. I'd like to do it for fun, but if I'm spending half my wages on it, what's the point?
True.
Oh yeah, and we've talked about this on the show. When I first lived in the UK in 2005, the exchange rate was $2.50 to the pound, which made me renting a Piper Cub, because both times I lived in Bury St Edmunds, Rougham Airfield. At the time, that would have cost me about $300 an hour for a Piper Cub, which is about $220 more than you should be paying for one.
Right.
And but then the second time I lived over there, with the exchange rate being a little bit more favorable towards us, I was able to do some GA flying, but it was still, it is expensive over there.
Yeah, indeed. Maybe this is the answer, though. Perhaps if GA flying is more commonplace, perhaps it'll drive the price down, and the sort of the aero parks thing could be more of a thing. I mean, as you say, it's not uncommon in the States at all, is it?
No, and that 600 number of air parks, that's actual air parks, like subdivision developed areas. That doesn't count the thousands, literally thousands of private airstrips here in the US where if you've just got enough land and you can put a 3,000-foot runway on your land, grade it out, and then if you just look at a VFR sectional of any part of the US, you'll see private airstrips all over the place.
True that.
I know what Carlos is like about buying aviation memorabilia and things. I thought Armando might be interested in talking to us about this next story, where the URL is www.thisiswhyimbroke.com/gifts for pilots.
Well, quite.
As it's coming up to Christmas.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start the story by saying my company is Corvus Aviation at the Concord Regional Airport. Feel free to send any of these to 9100 Aviation Boulevard.
Right, very good. Right.
So I think this would be this list. This is the high flying holiday gifts for any pilot or aviation enthusiast, or just Carlos by himself. This is a list that I found. It showed up in my feed, and then the actual website has the links to these items. But I actually whittled it down. There was like 55 items, and I think 51 of them I thought to myself, oh my goodness, I could totally use one of these. But the first one on this, which I actually thought was pretty cool, was a turbojet espresso machine. Matt's got it on the screen there. It's literally some kind of espresso machine in the shape of a jet engine. Man, this is a piece of artwork. The next couple, and I don't know, we can kind of jump in and out, but there's some vintage aircraft instrument drink coasters for $25. Yeah, that's my dog. For maybe you guys should read this.
Yeah, well, what else we got there? We've got the US Air Force F-15E optical illusion lamp, a My Pilot Pro GoPro mount. And
so that's good. That's good because everybody records their flights nowadays. So a GoPro mount is perfect. $100.
How about for $40 you could get a personalized cartoon pilot portrait?
That is all.
Just moving a bit further down.
I also didn't know the bassist from Queen was a pilot as well.
No, I was about to say that's quite spectacular. Moving further down the list, there, Matt, is some aviation socks for a mere $10.
Lovely.
Well, keep scrolling down to the next one, which is a reusable travel urinal.
Oh,
that's my favourite.
Oh my goodness!
I've got a lot of questions about that, but none of which I could ask on a live show. I don't think.
The hand on the left, Nev, is your answer. Anyway, the next one is a pilot jokes book.
We don't need one of those when you're here. I can,
a small volume, I would imagine. Yes,
absolutely. It's only $6.99. Nev tells its own story, doesn't it?
One of the better ones is there's a scratch off travel map poster, which you know you can take a coin and scratch off the places that you've been or you want to go. It's for $23. I actually had one of those for a long time. It's pretty cool. As a Nev, you could scratch off a good chunk of the world. Huh?
Yeah, true.
Well, a lot of Europe, certainly. Yes.
Yeah. Let's see, Microsoft Flight Simulator. That's a good one. And Microsoft MSFS 20. That's only $100. This one
here, isn't it?
Andy, the Navihawk timekeeping watch. That's
Yes.
Tell me you have an aviator's watch, don't you?
Oh yes, of course.
Okay, I was gonna say it is one of these things where you meet a milestone. Sometimes it's your commercial certificate, your commercial license. Sometimes it's your ATP. But I think every pilot deserves to treat themselves to something. Mine was a watch. I don't know. When did you get yours?
I've got the same watch as Nev, but the Red Arrows version. What's it called? The Citizen.
Oh, it's Skyhawk.
The Skyhawk. Yeah, I got that when I got my first proper full-time job, and I've got a Breitling as well that I got. My wife got me for Christmas.
Oh wow!
A couple of years back. Yeah.
No. Well, nothing says I'm a pilot when you walk into the room like having a Breitling,
huge chunky watch.
Yeah. Matt, if you have the website up there, you can scroll down to the Thunderstreak fighter plane ejection seat.
I'm glad it's an ejection seat. I didn't know what a Thunderstreak was.
I had a totally different answer in my head.
Only $8,300. That's
buy two.
That's actually within Carlos's budget for filling out his home
right.
cockpit.
Yeah, I'm amazed he hasn't gone down some kind of sort of I don't. To be fair, I don't think he'd go down the fighter plane ejection seat. It would definitely be one from a commercial plane. If he could get his hands on one of the seats from a TriStar L1011, I think he'd probably wet himself. But
yeah,
you can just imagine, Gemma, trying to get in the door one day and asking, Carlos, what is Martin Baker exactly?
yeah. What is this precisely?
On the credit card bill, right?
Yeah.
So Amanda, did you pick using this that you put in the show notes?
What Star Trek episode was that? We didn't understand you.
So
Speaking Klingon.
Yeah, you're just a Dalek. Can't hear a word. It'll come back in a minute. Oh.
No endorsement of Paramount Plus, but long live and prosper to you
Quite,
too.
Absolutely.
Well, shall we move on then?
Yes,
whilst we recover Andy and his Dalek and his mic and all the rest of it. Well, that brings us to the end of the commercial news segment for today. Fascinating insight, I think you'll agree there, into various things. So let's talk about this. It's the Nat Boys book. We were going to play the third segment of the interview on last week's show, but due to some technical challenges, we weren't able to do that. However, we are back this week, and it's the third and final part of Nick's interview with Rick Peacock Edwards, where he talks about his life as a military pilot. At the end of this, we'll be asking a quiz question because we have a signed copy here of the book from Rick. So if you'd like to run the VT, Matt, then we'll play part 3 of this episode.
Now, I was completely enthralled by Roy Gamblin's description of his engine failure in the Nat and his subsequent forced landing through cloud on an unfamiliar airfield, and I kind of rode every minute of that with him, mulling over the difficult decisions he had to make. For me, the book was worth reading just for that chapter. Now, you've had a long career, Rick. Anything similar in your history that comes to mind?
No, I've never. I mean, well, you read the book, there are plenty of stories of forced landings in there, whether it was my very good friend Bobby Eccles, who was instructor to Valley, went to the Red Arrows, or Roy Somerville had 2 forced landings from while he was a Red Arrow. And then there's Roy Gamblin, and as you say, it's a fascinating story with Mike Hullier in the back. I never had. I mean, we used to train, as you will remember. We trained for forced landings, visual forced landings, and radar forced landings as well. But at Lambetter, and we used to do radar forced landings at Lambetter. But I think on this occasion, it was after hours, basically. The airfield wasn't open. They did a fantastic job getting it on the ground. Absolutely fantastic.
Absolutely.
Roy, in fact, to this day, he lives not far from Lambetter.
Oh, wow.
He's in sight of Lambetter, looks out and remembers it well all the time.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Now, many of the anecdotes in your book seem to deal with numerous infractions and bent rules perpetrated by ex-fighter pilots at places like Little Rissington and Kemble. Surely there were a few responsible QFIs on the net?
Yes, I was one.
Of course you were.
So, I used to like to think that we were professional and responsible, and I think we were in general. But we were fighter pilots, and that was, in many ways, we would. The first time these young students coming off the Jet Provost, and they used to love being at Valley, love being sort of with chaps like myself and yourself later on, who'd come back from the front line, who were fighter pilots themselves by then. In my day, where it was mainly Hunters and Lightnings, in your day it was Harriers and Phantoms and things like that. So there was always spirit there, and you can read it right from the start. I mean, at one stage, for example, they was concerned about the Nat's ability to fly in formation. And
it was banned, wasn't it?
You read in the book there, a well-known aviator called Al Pollock,
yes.
of flying through sort of Tower Bridge fame.
Yes, exactly.
Who was an instructor at Valley, and it was he and a few others who did some illegal formation, which actually led to the formation of the Yellow Jacks, the forerunners of the Red Arrows, but also sort of led to sort of getting the aircraft properly cleared for formation, because it was a beautiful aircraft to fly in formation. Absolutely lovely.
It was, and despite the sensitivity of the controls, once you got the hang of it, it was really not a hard airplane.
Nope.
The engine response was very precise,
Yep.
as I recall. Brilliant.
It sat there beautifully. Used to love the formation there.
So how would you compare it with, say, flying in formation in the Phantom?
Well, the Phantom, apart from being a war machine, is an interesting aircraft in its own right, with all the different. The engines operate rather differently, and you're in an aircraft that's got sort of puff and blow sort of things all over the place. I mean, the Phantom, don't get me wrong, the Phantom is very nice in formation, very stable, and nice if you've got yourself settled. But it's a big aircraft, 20 tons, versus the Nat, which is less than 1 ton, I think. They're different. I think, like any aircraft I've flown, I've enjoyed flying formation in all the aircraft I've flown. I have found them different, and it's very often dependent on the size of the aircraft. And I mean, for example, in the Nat, those having the rate of roll being as it was, so the one thing about the Nat, you could over control in pitch and roll. That's when you go into formation initially. That was probably a little bit of a problem, which quickly like everything else, it just settles down, and then you're rock steady. And the same with the Phantom, you get used to that puff and blow and what have you, but it gets rock steady eventually.
Yeah, you really had to fly the Nat with your fingertips.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Phantom had that appalling engine lag that used to catch us all out every now and again. Now, the meat of your book is formed from personal recollections from those who flew it or were associated with it. How did you manage to bring them all together?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I published my first book 2 years ago, which was my autobiography called Rate of Climb, which has sold very well. And I was having lunch with my publisher from Grub Street, and he said to me, Rick, I want you to write another book. So at lunch we got talking about what the book should be about. And that's how we came to, I said, a book that hasn't been properly sort of covered is the Nat. Because I knew that people loved flying the Nat. I knew there were lots of stories associated with the Nat. And so that's how it happened. But we signed a contract in October 2021, and I had to deliver a manuscript in March, middle of March 2022. So it was a very short order. And I thought, at that stage, I thought, I think I'll get my mate Tom Eales to come and join me. So he came and we did it together, and it was the best thing that I could have done because we really worked exceedingly well together. We then worked out, the first thing we had to do was go out, we had our own stories obviously, to go out and let people know we were writing a book and get information back. Well, I'm not joking, we were absolutely amazed. We went out, we've got a lot of contacts ourselves, but for example, I mean, the Red Arrows sent it round to the world to get it out to their people. We got in touch with India, and once we got in touch with India and Finland, then the word went around there quickly. And we were absolutely inundated with people sort of contributing. In fact, I don't mind saying that we've got so much material that we've got enough material right now to write a Nat Boys 2.
Oh wow, excellent.
You'll find in the book there's I think there's 6 stories from India. We've got at least another 6 or 7 stories waiting for Nat Boys 2, which all depends on sort of how the sales go. So I really want the sales to go well so that my publisher will get us to write the next one.
Oh yeah, I think I'd love to read it.
So,
as well.
but so we were amazed at contributions, and they all came in very quickly, and we did most of the work from January, February into beginning of March, and we submitted the draft on time, and it was published on time in July this year. So we were well pleased with that, and the other thing that we introduced, which is in the book, is there were so many people who loved flying the aircraft, so many people contributed stories that we decided, well, got people who contributed only a couple of lines to a couple of paragraphs to a couple of pages, and then we've got others who contributed enough for chapters, as you've seen. So we thought, well, that's why we've got a section in there for what we call snippets and short stories, and that I think personally I like, because that gives visibility to many more of those who flew the Nat and just their little sort of cameos that they've contributed.
Absolutely. Now, many of those stories told to us by the Nat Boys mention being worryingly short of fuel. I know we've kind of mentioned it, but particularly after diversions and the like. But that doesn't seem to have been your experience.
Well, we were short of fuel, but I suppose, having flown the Lightning, you just fuel becomes such an important part of flying the aircraft, and it was in the Nat too, don't get me wrong, it was. And I mean, at Valley, we did have, where we instructed on the aircraft, we were very fortunate to have Mona only just down the way. So if we had a problem at Valley, for example, where we had 3 runways anyway, all right, some of them, the wind was always blowing at Valley, so probability is you've only had one that you could actually use. But normally we could always pop it down to Mona. So and we did have people with shorter fuel who had to go into Mona instead. So yes, no, I'm not being. Fuel did require management in the Nat. You had to know sort of how much fuel you needed to recover down the dive arc, as we called it. How much fuel you needed for the whether it was run and brake or feed into a GCA, ground controlled approach, whatever. So there was plenty of planning to do, and you had to know how much fuel you're using for an individual circuit. So yeah, but I don't think we had too many people with sort of getting ultra short of fuel.
Now, you had to be quite grown up about it. It was one aspect of the Nat that kept you very disciplined, wasn't it?
Yes.
Whereas in the Hawk, I recall, it was you were never really worried about it.
No, I mean the Hawk's different. I mean, the Hawk is, compared with the Nat, the Hawk is viceless.
Absolutely, yes. And yes, good job. The frontline airplanes are pretty viceless nowadays. So more on that subject, I was interested to read one of the Finnish Air Force pilots' comments on the Nat F1 when he was describing flying dissimilar air combat against the Draken. the Draken, you seem to use its fuel so fast that the Gnat would stay airborne. It would have one fight with the Draken, then they would go away, and another formation would come up, and they'd stay airborne for another fight. So perhaps the F1 had a bit more fuel, or just perhaps the Draken was very thirsty.
I think the Draken was very thirsty.
Okay.
rather like the Lightning, quite frankly. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
And I did do some, interesting enough, and it's in the book, I led a detachment to RAF Coningsby, in fact, of Nats, to do dissimilar air combat with the Phantoms there. Which was, I mean, the Phantom had plenty of fuel in it anyway. But that was an interesting experience.
I know. Being able to fight an aircraft that could almost disappear if you pointed at someone must have been wonderful. Brilliant. So, in your book, it contains some great stories, like the Indian squadron commander who told his pilots to check their guns after takeoff by firing a few Aden cannon shells into a nearby river without realizing it was used by hundreds of local people for their daily ablutions. Do you have a particular favorite story in the book?
No, I don't think I do. I just have. It's rather like I just like everything that's in the book, basically. I don't think I do have I get asked this sort of question quite a lot. I get asked the question particularly about myself, and which is my greatest memory. The trouble is I've got so many memories. It's difficult. I find it difficult to have a favourite story. I do.
Excellent. So The Nat Boys isn't the only amazing aviation book you've authored, because you mentioned you penned a biography called The Rate of Climb. Could you tell us a bit about that and what we would expect if we sat down and read it?
It's very different from Nat Boys for a start. Nat purely about the Nat, whereas Rate of Climb is my autobiography. It covers my life. So, and it's gone down very well. But, you know, it's not just a book about my flying career. It also covers my life growing up and in both South Africa and the UK, and what I've done since I left the Air Force. So it's my whole life. So it's very different. I am intending my third book, which I'm thinking about now and beginning to research, is going to be, I hope, about my father and I, and that will be a pure flying book, sort of relating what he did in his days in World War II, flying the Hurricane, in all sorts of situations, with my days flying the Lightning, Phantom, Nat, Tornado, etc. But that's in my mind at the moment. That's my task for the winter of 23-24.
Excellent, and I look forward to what you produce. Now, is there anything else that you'd like us to talk about before we wind this up, Frank?
I'm so pleased that Nat Boys has been published. I'm very pleased at some of the reviews. It's early days. Some of the reviews we're receiving, and people are clearly enjoying the stories that are in the book. And Tom and I, we were very, very satisfied with what we produced and what's in the book, because there's something there for everyone, and it's a real, and it's filled a niche in the market that was needed. No, I just, I set out in life. I didn't intend to write any books, quite frankly, and it's a big story behind writing my autobiography, my first book. But having done that, I learnt a lot, and that led on to the production of my second book, which is a bit different from. I mean, I didn't write this all myself. We produced it, but it was a very satisfying effort. I've like everything in life, I've learnt a lot, and I think writing books seems to be something a growing interest in my life.
Well, congratulations. I enjoyed it enormously, and thank you very much indeed for giving us your time. It's been a pleasure seeing you again, and good luck with the Nat Boys.
And Nick, if I might say so, it's great to see you again. Sort of, you bring back memories to me of days at Valley, and you mentioned, your navigation prowess at Valley. And one of the things I was proud of at Valley, if I can just say, was the fact that I came off Lightnings basically, and I was an air defence pilot, so I didn't do sort of that much sort of low flying then. But at Valley, we did a lot of low flying, and I used to love it. And I did the pilot navigation instructor course, mainly reserved for those who come off the low-level mud-moving world. So I broke into their territory. And that was really one of the most satisfying things that I did there. And that's how we first came into contact. Yeah. Then, of course, at Lucas, different squadrons, mainly in the bar, I think it was there, wasn't it?
Yes, and I'm very glad that you did that course, Rick, because without it, I think my flying career would have ground to a halt at Valley. But I really appreciate it, and thanks very much indeed for talking to us.
Thank you, Nick.
The Nat Boys isn't just a historic record of one of the many fast jet trainers used by the RAF, because most of them have come and gone without leaving an indelible mark on the memories of those who flew it like the Nat did. It earned many nicknames like the Pocket Rocket, the Paraffin Dart and the Sabre Slayer, to name just a few. Its sleek, needle-like appearance and remarkable manoeuvrability weren't the only things to imprint it on an entire generation of aviation lovers. It was the glorious sight of 9 bright red Nats of the RAF's formation team flying twinkle rolls in close formation that ensured it became an enduring memory. This book encapsulates all of that, but then reveals the wonderful memories of many pilots who flew in it, in particular armed with only a pair of Aden cannons, taking the Nat into combat to bring down enemy aircraft. This book is more about just one tiny aircraft. It's about a shared love of flying that has touched pilots across the world, and I truly commend it to you.
Well, how about that? Wasn't that a great,
wonderful series?
Third part of Rick Peacock Edwards and his colleague Tom Eales wrote the book called Nat Boys, and we have a signed copy here from Rick himself, which he very kindly signed on the day that we did that interview. And we have a quiz question for you, which we are going to be running now, and we'll give you the answer in next week's show. Firstly, send your answers to podcast@planetalkinguk.com, and we're going to draw out the winner on next week. Do not put your answer in the chat room, as it will not be counted, and the editor's decision is final on that.
Yes,
okay,
indeed.
So
yeah.
The question is, during their military careers, Rick and Nick were based at 2 different RAF stations at the same time in the UK, which is where they originally met. What 2 RAF stations were they? I'll repeat the question. During their military careers, Rick and Nick were based at 2 different RAF stations at the same time in the UK, which is where they originally met. What 2 RAF stations were they? As I said, the answer will be on next week's show, and the winner will receive a copy of Rick's book, personally signed by him, and I shall post that off to whoever the winner is, and we'll use the Carlos hat probably to draw the winners out.
That's a really, like I said, that's a really hard question, because I genuinely have no idea.
Well, the answer is in the
It's
in the episode somewhere. So
true,
yeah.
true.
But anyway, so that will be doing that next week, and we're looking forward to doing that. So
getting that on its way. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Great series it was. Thanks, Nev. I'm sad it's over. Really, we need to get something else in the can, don't we?
Yes, we do, and we'll be deciding on that in the next few weeks. What we're going to be doing next year.
Very exciting. Very exciting.
So what's next then, Matt? Do you think it's some military, maybe?
I think it's that grey thing, isn't it?
Oh, it is,
yeah.
yes.
Well, before we move on to the military, while the interview was airing out, we were talking about some additional Christmas gifts, and we would be remiss if we didn't mention the bead wipes. The Plane Talking UK, I only listen for the gray mugs, which should have been actually at the top of that Christmas list.
Yep.
Suitable for beverages as well as pens, paper clips, and anything else that you want to put in there. But please grab yourself 1, 2, 3, or 6 for the whole family, because nobody enjoys the military as much as.
And I can still get them to you in time for Christmas, as long as I receive your order by the end of next week. So make sure you get everything. So the deadline is Friday the 16th, in order for me to try and get them to you as soon as I can. So make sure, if you, as I said, I've got a couple of orders already that will be going out hopefully this week, all being well. But yeah, try and get them in before the end of next week if you want them in time for Christmas.
All right, I'm going to model it one more time, and then I'm just going to boop Mac the Osprey right here on the nose. Boop. Let's do some military.
What's up, Buggies? 13550 Angel 16. Heading 340. Okay. 100 St. Buggies.
Honestly, sometimes I do wish you could hear what we talk about when we're not on air.
It's always my pleasure to try to give you a heart attack coming out of the commercial breaks, Matt.
Always a pleasure. Yeah.
From defensenews.com. Deterrence the American Way. If you haven't seen it yet, the new B-21 bomber just debuted this week. For the first time in almost a generation, the Air Force has revealed its new stealth bomber, a sleek, highly capable weapon that the service hopes will be so deadly that it would force leaders in China and Russia, as examples, to rethink war for decades to come. The Air Force unveiled the Northrop Grumman-made B-21 Raider to the public last Friday in a ceremony at Air Force Plant 42 in Palmdale, California. That included top defense officials, Northrop Grumman Chief Executive Officer Kathy Warden, and a tribute to the storied Doolittle Raiders for whom the bomber is made. According to Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, he said the audacity of the Doolittle Raiders has inspired generations of American aviators. It's fitting that the next chapter in American air power is named in their honor. The ceremony was actually attended by some of the families of the Doolittle Raiders and a crowd of Northrop Grumman employees, as well as it was broadcast over YouTube. As dusk fell, Northrop Grumman employee sang the national anthem. A procession of 3 bombers streaked overhead, a B-52, a B-1, and finally a B-2, which this aircraft looks a lot like. After the CEO of Northrop's comments, in which she thanked the employees who designed and built the bomber, some dramatic music played, a pair of massive hangar doors slid wide open, and the B-21 sat there under a massive cover, bathed in fog and blue light. The sheet dropped, revealing the bomber, and it was towed towards the edge of the hangar as the crowd applauded. There was much rejoicing. No, the long-awaited debut of the B-21 marks a milestone in reshaping the Air Force's increasingly creaky bomber fleet. Air Force leaders now envision that the B-21 is going to be the backbone of its future bomber force, which is a key element of the U.S. military arsenal, perhaps for the next half-century or so. Now, when the highly classified secretive bomber actually starts arriving at Air Force bases, such as charming Ellsworth Air Force Base in South Dakota, later this decade, it will arrive with the capability to carry both nuclear and conventional weapons, including standoff and direct attack munitions. An estimated $203 billion price tag for the program. B-21 will be one of the top 2 biggest aircraft acquisitions programs in U.S. military history, rivaled only by our friend and airplane that loves to go into the drink, the F-35. The ceremony marked the first time that the Air Force has actually rolled out a new bomber in more than 3 decades, since the B-2 Spirit's debut at the exact same site on November 1988. Like its predecessor, the bat-shaped B-21 is a flying wing design with no tail, minimal fuselage, reduces drag, reduces enemy signature on enemy radars. The Air Force is thinking that the B-21, as it becomes more available, will eventually replace the B-1 and B-2s as the Air Force moves to a planned just 2-bomber fleet. So essentially, they're thinking they're going to retire all the B-1s and B-2s by the early 2030s, leaving at least 100 B-21s and the B-52, which by that point will be almost 100 years in service with some revamped engines. So there you go. Not a lot came out of about this airplane until it was revealed just this week, but now we know what it actually looks like. And even then, it was fog and some LED lights and all that stuff. So lots of details were not actually revealed, but it was a pretty cool ceremony. I think Jonathan Warner actually texted me about 20 minutes before the ceremony and asked me, commanded me to do nothing else but watch the ceremony. So I did indeed. Anyway, pretty cool.
Brilliant.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it was a fascinating tale there, wasn't it? Yes. Yeah, very interesting.
Or lack thereof.
Well, yes, quite.
See what you did there.
Yeah.
Yep. Nev, you've got the next one. This is a amazing story from the UK, isn't it?
Yeah, very sad, actually. We heard this week, it's on the bbc.com website, tributes paid as last surviving Dambuster. Johnny Johnson dies. Squadron Leader George Johnny Johnson was a bomb aimer in the 617 Squadron, which destroyed key dams in Germany during the war. His family said he died peacefully in his sleep on Wednesday. In 2017, TV presenter Carol Vorderman led a campaign for Mr. Johnson to receive a knighthood for his bravery during the operation. He was born in Lincolnshire and lived in Bristol and was just 21 when he took part in the 1943 operation, which involved experimental bouncing bombs that were targeted at dams in the Ruhr Valley, releasing huge quantities of water into areas used by Germany for war production. Mr. Johnson was made an MBE in 2017 after a long-running campaign supported by celebrities such as Miss Vorderman. She told BBC Radio Bristol that Mr. Johnson was part of a generation that sacrificed everything but asked for nothing in return. Well over 50,000 died in combat and their average age was this similar to that of Johnny's at the time, Miss Vorderman said. They were young men, they were kids, and Johnny was one of the finest. Posting to Facebook, his daughter Jenny Sextone said that his family were beside their beloved Gramps at the time of his death. We would appreciate your respect for our privacy at this family time, she added. It was Mr. Johnson's job to target the Sorpe Dam as part of the attack, which was codenamed Operation Chastise and carried out by the RAF's 617 Squadron, based at RAF Scampton. It was one of the most dangerous air operations of the war, with 53 men killed and 3 captured. Painter Di Llewellyn Hall, who produced a portrait of Mr. Johnson for his 100th birthday, described him as a man with a warming and inviting spirit. In the last few years of his life, Mr. Johnson, who lived in Westbury-on-Trim in North Bristol, was involved in charity work and made many public appearances. In 2019, he had an intercity train named after him and was also given an honorary doctorate by the University of Lincoln in 2017. After 22 years of service in the Air Force, he worked as a teacher in Newark in Nottinghamshire. He and his wife Gwyn later moved to Devon, where he became a Conservative councillor. Author and war veteran and friend John Nicholl said, "I was looking through some pictures of all the times I'd met Johnny, and I think in every single one, he and I had got a glass of something in our hands, and we were raising a toast to something or someone. That's how I remember Johnny, a man who loved life, who served his nation and loved a glass of red wine." Lisa Harding, an aviation photographer and archivist for the Petwood Hotel in Lincolnshire, which was once home to the 617 Squadron, said she was heartbroken having met Mr. Johnson on several occasions. He was truly a humble man who was always quick with his praise for everybody else with him in Bomber Command, and who described himself as just doing his job, and his relentless fight for Bomber Command veterans to get the medal that they deserved, she said. He was fighting for that pretty much up until his last breath. Well, what a story. Absolutely incredible.
What a wonderful story. I mean, a good innings, let's be honest, an incredible innings, but it is the end of it really is the end of an era, isn't it? So sad, really, but yeah, I mean, the good thing is I think his and many other stories have been well and truly documented. So I hope people will continue to learn, the story.
And never forget.
Yeah, genuinely, never.
That is one thing that you guys do so well over there. I've always been envious of how well you guys do, not just Remembrance Day, but remembering in general. And it sounds like Richard Adams in the chat room actually got a chance to meet Johnny while
Wow.
he was getting a book signed. So, and his account concurs with that,
Yeah.
that he was a real gentleman. So.
Wonderful, sad, but also I think we should celebrate really, an amazing legacy that he and his brethren sort of have left behind, really, for people like us to be able to sort of really sort of get on with it. I mean, we'll never know what those guys went through. Armando, you've probably got a better idea than most out of all of the people sat here at this table, but I for one am very thankful for everything that he did.
Yeah,
it's a good reminder in these times of how fragile peace is, and you've got to keep fighting for it.
Agreed.
Couldn't agree more. So we'll wrap up the military. We got one more story from airforcetimes.com, and we actually talked about this when it happened. This was an F-16 that went down. It turned out that the Oklahoma Air National Guard F-16 was actually destroyed when it was on a Homeland Security defense training mission that turned into a real-life attempt to intercept the civilian plane, according to the Accident Investigation Board. The investigators actually blamed the pilot for the jet crash, saying that the airman could have actually regained control over the F-16. The Air Force also ruled that the pilot and another instructor flying alongside of him violated multiple training rules when they chose to rendezvous and intercept with the incoming plane. The unnamed airman, which there's no reason to name them, was an F-16 instructor pilot who worked at a Texas-based detachment of the 138th Fighter Wing. They were flying over Louisiana when he successfully ejected, sustaining minor injuries, but the jet costs $27 million and it was totaled on impact. But March 23rd, the day of the mishap, the airman headed out to practice a two-jet Homeland Defense mission known as a Aerospace Control Alert, or an intercept mission. At first, the lead pilot pretended to be an unfamiliar aircraft so that the wingman, the airman who ultimately ejected, could practice intercepting and escorting it. Their first run at doing this was uneventful, according to the report. But then things got a little bit real. The pilot discovered a general aviation aircraft flying at 1,700 feet in a holding pattern around Beauregard Regional Airport in western Louisiana. So the lead pilot suggested that they intercept that aircraft. That would help the pair, ostensibly, practice visually identifying a low, slow-moving aircraft, according to the report. But the airmen didn't follow standard intercept procedures. They did not radio the civilian airplane or let air traffic control know about their attempted intercept. That's all according to the report. The lead pilot started to read the incoming plane's tail number, but left to meet a tanker to go get gas. The other airman, however, dipped below the minimum required speed as he finished the intercept. Decelerating triggered a warning that the jet could stall. Then ultimately the jet did stall. The F-16 was approximately 300 feet above the civilian aircraft, as opposed to the published 1,000 feet required when executing an intercept from the side or the front. Apparently he hit some kind of wrong switch as he tried to climb. The aircraft shuddered as a kind of a stall, but the pilot, the shock factor, wasn't expecting it. So the civilian aircraft was at 1,700 feet. So really, he's only about 2,000 feet off the ground. The F-16 is a high performance jet with a high wing loading. Once it went into a stall, not a lot of time to recover. At that point, he decided that the aircraft was unsafe and ejected. He landed in a tree and was rescued by a nearby Army unit, but the investigation turned out that said that ejecting was actually a mistake. They went into the simulator, they conducted some flight simulations, and determined that even in a stall condition, the aircraft was still flyable at the point that the pilot decided to eject. There's a lot of power, as you know, in an F-16, and basically they came to the conclusion that from that stall, the pilot could have applied full power and the correct stall recovery procedures, and at that altitude, at that airspeed, in those conditions replicated in a simulator, that the aircraft would have been flyable. So not often that this happens, that they just kind of hard blame a pilot on this, but there's a lot of broken procedures on this. I couldn't imagine being on the civilian aircraft side of this and just being flying along and having an unexpected, unannounced surprise intercept by a couple F-16s. I think that was a terrible decision on the two pilots there to effect this intercept of a civilian aircraft that wasn't part of the script. That could go wrong so many ways. Completely disagree with their decision to do that. So either way, at least nobody got hurt, and he ejected and was fine and flying later. So
lessons learned, I think, is probably the way to describe that.
Won't do that again.
No, quite. Yeah, he's lucky he got away with doing it the once, I think.
Yeah, no, for real. That's no joke. I don't know at what altitude he punched, but I don't know. If he was already in that mind state, he may have gone in with the airplane. So I'm glad he got out, but it was flyable.
Wow.
Anyway, that wraps up our military.
Incredible. What a story to end on as well. Blimey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Goodness.
Well, that's almost it for today, isn't it? So, Andy, what's your plans for the next few days? Are you going to be in the sim the whole time, did you say? Or are you...
It's a couple of days of ground school and then a few days in the simulator as well, yeah. A busy week.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well,
but fun. It will be fun.
Yeah, it's is this? I know they all matter, but is this one that matters? I get very confused. Like I suppose they wouldn't be putting you in the sim if it didn't matter. I suppose because they're not cheap, are they?
It's not a license check or anything like that, but it's just the course to start my qualification off.
Ah, okay, cool.
He's being humble. So there's no higher rating than an airline transport, an ATP certificate. So when the airline determines that you have the necessary qualifications and experience to be an instructor or check airman, they're putting a lot of trust in you there, Andy. So don't sell yourself short. It's a great resume CV builder when you can demonstrate that you weren't just a line flyer and you were a line check airman. I know it's big here in the US, and congratulations to you, sir, because that is a lot of trust to be able to say, yes, this individual is good to go to fly the line.
Well, thank you. I'll wait to get through the course first.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He'll be the first to celebrate, I'm sure, once you're out the other side of it. Well, good luck, Andy. I hope hope it all goes well. I'm sure it will do.
Cheers.
We all believe in you, dear boy. We all believe in you.
Thank you for having me on once again. It's been great fun.
Always a pleasure. Yes, absolutely. A conversation that I will never get over, if I'm honest with you. But enough about what we were talking about.
Yeah, quite the moment, wasn't it? Yes,
it was. Yeah, yeah. I learned a lot.
Yes, I didn't.
No, come on, fair enough.
Well, so let's talk about how you can get in touch with us at the show here. Social media links, Facebook, Twitter or Instagram. Just search those platforms for Plain Talking UK and you'll find us there. Our WhatsApp number is +44 757 224 9166. That's +44 757 224 9166. Email is podcast@plaintalkinguk.com. That's the email address you need to use if you'd like to enter the competition for this week.
Give them a quick reminder of what the question is as well, I think.
I should do that, shouldn't I, really? So I shall just do a bit of scrolling back in the old show notes. And the question is... it's in order to win a copy of the Nat Boys book written by Rick Peacock Edwards and Tom Eales. The question is, during their military careers, Rick and Nick, who Nick was doing the interview, were based at two different RAF stations at the same time in the UK, which is where they originally met. What two RAF stations were they? And we've already got some incoming answers.
We have indeed, yeah.
As well.
And you need to be quick on this one, by the way, as well. You need to get your answers in before Friday the 16th of December, because we're going to do the draw at, once 7 o'clock comes round on Friday the 16th of December, you're out of luck, basically, because that's when they're going to do the draw. So don't dilly-dally, get your answers in straight away if you want to win yourselves a copy of this signed incredible book.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't forget, our website is all the W's, plaintalkinguk.com. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channels. You'll get notifications when we go live, and you can help shape the conversation of the show by joining us in the chat room, as so many people have done this evening. So thank you very much for doing that. And you can go to youtube.com and just search for Plain Talking UK there. Also, as it's Christmas time, we have an Amazon link on our website. We get paid a small referral fee if you do your Amazon shopping via our website. So just go to our plaintalkinguk.com website to get that. Also, you can become a Patreon. You can help support the show financially, and that's also available as a click button on the website also. So I think that's probably about it tonight, Matt, isn't it?
Yes, I think so. I think we've got everything covered there, yes.
No, it's been a great evening once again. Thanks to Armando. Great military contribution as ever, and other contributions.
Have you got anything nice planned next week?
I'm actually doing the bulk of my flying for the year is over the next week.
Oh wow! Okay.
So I'll be in the Hawker. I'll be in Alabama, Tulsa, Huntsville.
Goodness me.
I think Albuquerque, Las Vegas, basically flying every single day over the next 5 days.
Wow. Okay. Good luck. Good luck. Safe blue skies and all that. Blue skies and tailwinds, I think is what they say, isn't it?
Let's hope.
Indeed. What about you, Nev? What are you up to?
What have we got? Oh, the company Christmas party next week in Brighton on the south coast.
Nice location.
Behave yourself.
That could be interesting,
bet.
It could be difficult the following day, I think.
Quite, yes. I think a scheduled lay down will be required at some point the following day. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I should be travelling back on the Friday morning, so hopefully I will be on the show in the evening on Friday.
Okay. Good luck, everyone. Yes, indeed. I'm not here next week. I've got a week off. That's because it's the company Christmas party. And frankly, I wasn't going to turn down the fact that I work for a wine company and not go to their Christmas party, frankly. So, because the one thing you can be sure is the wine is free. So, definitely going to be doing this. So I'm not here next week. Carlos will be in the chair next week.
Could you give him a technical driving lesson before next week?
I'll certainly try. I do keep trying. Keep trying. Lovely. Everybody badger him and make sure that he comes for some training. But that's it, Nev. Let's say goodnight, shall we?
Yeah, thanks very much to everyone for joining us tonight, as always, and to Armando, to Andy, and to Matt. That's all for now. Look forward to seeing you again same time next week. Bye for now.
And there we are, done. Another show done. There we go. Well done, everyone. Andy just went into Dalek mode right at the end there, so that was timing.
Is it back?
No, you're still a Dalek.
Still a Dalek,
Lovely.
yeah.
Very good. It's like, yeah,
Well,
just
there was a-
please say the word exterminate.
Permanent.
It's a bit lackluster. Come on. Put more effort into it.
Is it back to normal now or not?
Kind of. It's rebuilding. We have the technology. We will rebuild you. Wow. So you've got you two, but both the pilots have got mental weeks ahead of them by the sound of it.
Yeah. Gosh. Wow.
Yeah. I don't envy your schedule, Armando, at all. That sounds exhausting.
Oh, it's fine. It's all day trips and yeah, it's not a big deal. But I enjoy it, and it's all my owners, the owners of the aircraft don't fly from Christmas. We do have a weird flight. We have one flight on the 26th, very short flight, but they purposely make the holidays available to the pilots. There's only 3 full-time pilots, and they make sure that we don't fly on holidays. So we're going to do the bulk of the flying here this week, and then it's back in when we get to January on the other side, then we're back to 4 days a month, 5 days a month.
Oh wow, okay, wow.
Yeah.
So busy.
I'm going to Malaga on Christmas Day.
Oh, lovely.
Well, that's not bad.
No,
I mean, if you're
not really.
staying there,
I'm going there and back.
as I say, is it a turnaround or is it?
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah, mine's a day trip on Christmas Day. It's I don't even no, Naples, Florida, and back.
Wow.
So there were a couple questions in the chat room about that last military story, the F-16. For Neil, yes, it was a premature ejection. So, which is actually related to Micah's question. Wouldn't you think that an instructor pilot would have known the flying conditions of his aircraft and not have needed to eject? Yes, is the answer to that. That is exactly what the Safety Investigation Board found, is that the pilot's actions were inappropriate given the flight conditions. And follow-on question, what kind of military discipline will he face? Well, the first thing that's going to happen is he's going to get Q3'd, which is a disqualification from flying. He will lose his mission qual as well as his basic qual, depending. So this was a guard unit, an Air National Guard unit. It's a little bit different than active duty. So it's kind of like your territorial army, right? Where it's not a full-time thing. Where not Micah, you guys, but discipline is handled a little bit differently in the Guard and Reserves. If it was active duty, they could certainly just strip him of his flying qualifications and send him off to go do some other job. Especially if he's got such a negative mark on his aviation career, he's just not going to be successful after that in the military. The Guard and the Reserves, I'm not entirely sure. He may just kind of execute the remainder of his contract, which is 2, 3, 4 years or something like that. And then at that point, he may have the opportunity to go do some other career field or just kind of go off and go do something else. But yeah, when a safety board finds that you made a $25 million smoking hole in the ground and you didn't need to, you're kind of done. But there won't be just not like a court martial or anything like that. It'll just kind of be the end of that individual's flying career.
Wow.
Usually.
Wow. Yeah. It's just, I don't know. I guess we still need some more information about it, don't I? It's like why it happened and all that kind of thing. But
Well, my biggest thing is they were way off the reservation, right? I mean, I was an Air Force instructor and examiner, and when you go off script, you're out doing a training mission. You decide to intercept a unwitting civilian airplane. You could have, if you hurt that individual, if they weren't expecting it, they don't know how to respond to an intercept. Keep in mind, our airspace is such that there's a lot of uncontrolled airspace here in the U.S., and there's a lot of people that that go their entire flying careers without even talking to a control tower or anything like that, because you just don't need to. It's uncontrolled airspace, and I couldn't imagine a pilot like that being intercepted by two F-16s, and you haven't done anything wrong, you're not near any temporary flight restrictions, you're not near any controlled airspace, there's no reason for those aircraft to be on your wing. The startle effect of that pilot, the intercepted pilot, could lead to so many wrong things, and I don't know how you could live yourself as the military pilot if you were to inadvertently cause injury or death to an unwitting civilian. Now that's different right now. Now you're talking some criminal charges, things like that. But I don't know why they were so far off the reservation making up their own.
They're making up their own rules. Yeah. Well, perhaps we have our answer there. Who knows? Unofficially, indeed. Okay, well, time to say goodnight then, people. Andy, safe. Well, not safe because you're in a sim, but yeah, good luck. I'm sure you won't need it, but I hope everything goes according to plan.
Cheers, Matt.
And Nev, keep it safe.
Well, we'll try to. And yes, I've got a slightly quieter start of the week actually tomorrow.
Good.
Sorry, yes, the start of next week, no flying or anything, so that's quite nice. And my next flight, I think, will be to Amsterdam Schiphol on the 4th of January. So
yes, I'm going to echo Mazous's comment in the chat room there. It says, thanks, everyone, stay warm. I think that's good sound advice, I think.
It is a bit
there we go.
Isn't it?
Yeah, indeed. Right, Nev, we'll leave you to say goodbye, I think.
Yeah, thanks again, folks. Everyone in the chat room, anyone that's been listening and watching today, really appreciate your company. And stay safe, stay warm. We'll be back next week. Bye for now.